right. Well, I'm John Soroselli, and welcome to I Take That Personal podcast here. Today we have Mr. Fred Macias, Alfredo Macias, Fred Macias, right? I just learned it was fully Alfredo. And before we get into that, our our episode is brought to you by J&J Coastal Lending. They're our sponsor. You'll hear a little bit more from them a little bit later on. But Mr. Alfredo, I've never said that before.
Right?
Fred Macias.
We've known each other for so many years.
I know, and I've never said that, right? I thought it was Frederick. So, and I'm just John, not Jonathan. Sometimes people ask me that, but Jonathan is Jon. So that's the distinction. When you have an H in there, then it's John. Now, there's probably gonna be some John that's not Jonathan, that's Jon. That's gonna be in my
anything
comments,
goes these days.
Be in my comments right now. But yeah, I mean, we've had the opportunity to know each other and work together for quite some time. Why don't you do a quick little introduction? Tell the listeners who you are, a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, sure. So yeah, Fred Macias, and I've been I've been a longtime resident of Huntington Beach. Born and raised in Torrance, California. But man, I've gotten into real estate, and part of what we're going to talk about is the fact that, I was just dwelling on it on the drive over here. I've been to 30 countries, and I'm leaving for 2 more next week.
You're leaving Monday, right?
I'm leaving Monday for Greece and Croatia. And you know what? I mean, every time I leave the U.S. or this area, I come back, with new adventures and new thoughts, and I apply them to how much I love selling where I live.
Yeah.
So yeah, we'll talk a little bit more about where I've been, but
yeah. So let's talk about that real quick, because I didn't realize 30 countries. That's crazy. So when did you start traveling?
Yeah. So I came from a family where my father was a airline mechanic. So as a little kid, we started traveling quite a bit, but it was never very far, Hawaii or Mexico. So in high school, in college, when my buddy and I, as graduating gifts to ourselves, we were going to go to Europe. Well, he bagged out, and I said, well, what am I going to do? He had to take a job, and he couldn't say no. And so I went, and that was where I...
Did you do legitimately on the backpacking through Europe?
Yes.
College kid. I just graduated.
American with the Canadian flag on my back.
Story. This is like you graduate college and you go backpack through Europe.
Yes. Yep.
And you did that.
Yep. By myself.
That is so rad.
Eurail pass.
How long were you gone for?
3 months. 11 countries.
Like staying in hostels a thing?
Hostels. I was meeting people on trains. They were inviting me back to their homes, their family homes, back in their countries.
Dude, give me a crazy story, or give me one.
Oh gosh, I got plenty.
Give me one of the main memories.
Here's a really good one. Okay,
right,
here's a really good one. So I meet these 2 sisters, and and I hit it off with one of them, and we became friends. The 3 of us traveled together. They invite me back to their home in Maastricht, Netherlands, which is a beautiful little town. Her parents are both professors at university, and so I come to their home. We dinner together. We talk about life. I was an engineering student at the time, so I hadn't quite graduated yet, by the way. So I'd gone before I graduated. So great. So she shows me around the town, having a great time. Come back home. It's kind of late, and she shows me my bedroom, and she decides to give me a little kiss goodnight. Her mother must have said something, Annika, and all I know is the next morning when she woke me up, Fred, so we must have breakfast, and then I take you to the bus station, the train station. What happened? Well, my mother wasn't happy I came into your room last night. So that was one of the more awkward breakfasts that I had.
Yeah, you're having breakfast with a mom who wants to kick you out.
It's funny.
How many nights did you get there?
No, it was just one night stay, and
one night stay, and you got kicked out. Bro.
Yes, yeah.
This has been it.
It wasn't even my fault.
And it wasn't even the first. It was the first woman that kicked you out of their house. Or no? Last one,
I'll tell you, man. And my son's in Madrid now, in fact, and so he's studying abroad, and so we're going to see him. And traveling to outside of this country is phenomenal, but it gives you a huge ability to see what we have here. It's a wonderful place we have.
Dude, I am honestly so jealous because listen, I'm an Italian, like that matters. I'm from New York, and just in the people who I was around and what I was doing, nobody was doing that. Nobody was going to do that, and I was just in the hustle mindset, right? Like I was in the I'm working full time. 14, 15, 16 years old, working, saving money to buy a car, to do these things, very materialistic, I guess, from that perspective. But working and having a job, that it wasn't even a thing. I was like, and the few times it came up, I'm like, why the fuck do I want to leave the country? I'll go to Vegas. I'll go to Florida. I'll go here. I'll go there. All these other places I haven't been to. Now, as I'm in my 40s with kids and the career and everything else, I haven't done it. And, it's becomes harder and harder to do it
Mm-hmm.
because of the responsibilities I have, the kids in the school, and sports and all these different things. But it's like, yeah, I went to Mexico. I mean, shit. I've been to Canada. Like, I don't even think I've definitely been nowhere in Europe or anything. I don't think anything past Mexico. So it's very interesting. So where are you going now again? Next? You're leaving Monday, right?
Yep. Monday, Greece first. We arrive in Athens, and then we'll spend a week there, and then a week in Croatia.
So 2 weeks.
2 weeks, yeah. I gotta say, John, I mean, it's interesting because I when it's amazing. Just today, I heard about and I investigated because I just thought, what, really? It was so much harder to travel then. And I thought that traveling would be less impactful on me because of technology, because of social media and so on. It dilutes the experience, but that's not true. And now, today I saw something. For $33,000 a year, now you have to do the full 3-year trip, cruising around the world. You can see 135 countries, and as a loan officer, you can actually work on that ship.
I saw something like that happens. There's a cruise ship.
It's a cruise ship
for 3 years. You live full time on the cruise ship for $33,000 a year, and you travel the world.
Yeah,
yeah.
I mean, I saw that. That was impossible back when I was traveling.
No, it's insane. I mean, granted, my wife and kids would not want to do that.
No.
But I saw that, and I'm like, that's fucking wild.
Yeah.
I mean, you're
crazy.
spending more than that, whatever, on rent and all these
food,
other things.
of course,
and food,
yeah.
because it's all inclusive, and the trip and the traveling.
Yeah.
That's pretty crazy. So, obviously, the career as a real estate agent helps to afford that, right? And I don't mean afford financially, but I also mean afford in the sense that you have the freedom to be able to do stuff along those lines.
Absolutely.
So, but this is your second career, right? So tell me, what was the first career again?
Well, so first career was just, the typical do what it sounds right and dad says to, my dad kind of coached me. My dad wanted to be an engineer, and I didn't know that until I became one. So I was I became an engineer. So I graduated with an engineering degree from Cal Poly San Luis Obispo.
And he directed you to become an engineer.
He
encouraged.
He encouraged. He said, and my dad's an immigrant, as my mom is too. Both immigrants. Neither has a college degree. So I was the first in the family to have a college degree. But I look at that and go, oh, okay, that was. I don't regret it because. I worked hard. I've always worked hard. I've had a paper out when that was my first job. Mine
was busboy.
Busboy. Okay, I did that too. Busboy in a restaurant. And then when I went to college, I thought, okay, how am I going to set myself apart? I know I have a good work ethic. I knew that already. So I just started crunching numbers for a professor. I did that for my sophomore year. I started working for him. I just went to his office hours, your typical networking type of thing, right? Mm-hmm. That's important in all things. You always want to network and be known by someone that can be influential. Mm-hmm. So he's the one who got me into Apple Computer. I did a summer there.
What year was that?
So that was 1987.
You summered at Apple.
Summered at Apple, Cupertino, and the Fremont manufacturing plant where I just learned to put computers together. I was putting together 2 different models of the Apple computers back then. Fridays we'd go to Cupertino, company was sponsored, beer and pizza. Amazing company to work for. Always has been, 80s, always is. Yeah, this was back in the 80s. It was big clunky computers on a funky manufacturing line. But just a summer. Then I liked it, but I wasn't completely enthralled. So fast forward 2 years later, I working for the same professor, doing more interesting things. I was doing more research, going to the library, finding articles about manufacturing techniques and so on. And then he got me a job. He helped me get a job at Northern Telecom in Canada. So that was my first living abroad. I lived in Canada for 6 months in Ottawa, working at Northern Telecom. And that was a fascinating experience from a lot of levels. In fact, some people that I met there that were my age were students from other countries, and the Canadian government sponsored something called ISD, an International Association for Students in Technical and Engineering Degrees, something like that, ISD. So those students I met, I visited 3 of them when I was on that trip to Europe. So again, networking, staying in touch with people, that's my vibe. I didn't really realize it was a salesman's vibe. I didn't know that I was supposed to be in sales. Mm-hmm. I did that 6-month gig, and that's when I realized I don't really like being, in anything that's long-term, drawn out. You're trying to design things that still are are inclined by political motives as well as, you're trying to butter people up is what I felt like. I was young and I was naive. So I say that truly, but I also say it in the sense of, the listeners out there, as you listen to something like this, especially for the young people, career paths are not linear. And everything that you do, look for what you learn from it, right? So I graduated, and so you asked me what my first job was, career.
Yeah.
My first career was business consulting, because I knew that I was able to, just like in real estate, you take buyers out and you remove the types of products they don't want. Well, I knew I didn't want to be an engineer, so I'm, getting ready to graduate. I'm looking at the different possibilities, and at the time there was a company called Anderson Consulting, and they were new to this concept of business consulting, which was reserved for people that have their MBAs at that time. And they brought it a level down where they built teams up. It was fantastic. I would do that all over again, just for the experience of how they trained us, and the work I did was very interesting. So I went to 12 different companies within 9 years working there. And then I realized, I'm not sure I really like the corporate gig. I thought I'm going to find my.
But that company had you going to different companies as a consultant.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Yep.
And how long did you spend on average with each company?
My longest gig was 2.5 years.
Okay.
My shortest gig was about 2 weeks.
Got it.
And then there was a lot of proposal work in between. You'd literally cold call. I would do a little bit of cold calling. I speak Spanish fluently, so I ended up on a gig in Mexico. I lived there for a while too, with Anderson. Now it's called Accenture, for people that are curious. By the way, if you buy stocks, check them out. After that 9 years there, I left kind of voluntarily. I was given a severance package, which is always nice. They don't do those anymore, I don't think. But I decided it was up or out. I was starting to travel and work in places that I didn't want to be, because I live in Southern California. I was working in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. I was going to all these different places, and they were good jobs, great projects, but I didn't like being in those places, and I am a creature of my environment. So after those 9 years, I hooked up with a ex boss of mine, and I spent 6 years working for a Japanese manufacturing company out here in Irvine. And I worked with him for 6 years. But after those 6 years, and that was another great gig, I was doing cool stuff with optical character recognition, binding legacy data with scanned documents. At the time, I still considered myself a technology person.
Yeah, it sounds very tech, all the stuff that you're doing, between building computers and all that stuff.
Yeah, it was very much. I was.
So then why am I showing you how to work your laptop? No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, no.
I just don't understand this then.
Hey, by the way, my iPhone?
Yeah, come on now. No, I'm kidding. Yeah, continue.
Well, no. And you outgrow technology. It's hard to keep up unless you have a certain brain, right? So those 6 years with him were great. I spent those 6 years. After 3 years, and this is one of the things I wanted to bring up at some point in this.
Do it right now.
Yeah.
Go for it.
One of the things I wanted to bring up is everyone out there. It doesn't matter your age. When you're thinking about whatever you're doing, if you know in your gut, like I did, that I needed something else. I needed a change, a big change. But I let myself be carried on another 3 years in this occupation, which is okay. And a lot of people do this, but really take the time to investigate something else. It's so easy now too, right? You can Google anything. You can find out about careers, jobs, try it out. I think most people do that nowadays.
I think too much, to be honest with you.
Is that right?
I mean, I can't say it, from a large scale, but how do you, and so here's my question then, how would you balance the difference between recognizing that you need a change and being fickle and not being able to be committed and stick through to something?
Yeah, that's, I think if my kid were to ask me something like that, I have two boys, 19 and 21 now, right? And a 21-year-old's in his third year of college. And in fact, we're going on this trip where we're going to be having this conversation. I'm quite sure. I could tell it's bugging him about making a decision and then sticking with it for a period of time, and I think time is a critical element. and when I say time, it doesn't mean, okay, 1 year. It's like number of hours that you actually commit to it. I certainly believe in I forget the name, Outliers, his name in the book. I can't remember the name of the author, 10,000 hours. That's a very long time commitment. That's to become an expert, but to recognize whether it's something that you like enough to pursue and struggle through, that doesn't take 10,000 hours. So somewhere in there between employer and employee, partner and the two partners, whatever you want to call it, there needs to be some kind of commitment like that, and that commitment should hold. How do you get to that point? I'm not too sure, but I agree that there's a lot of fickleness, if that's a word, out there.
We just made it a word.
Yeah, it is.
Fickleness is a word
Fickleness.
now. Fickleness is the word. But no, because I think it's important. And what's interesting that we're talking about this right now. So literally, I met someone today. And at a meeting I had, 7 a.m. business meeting, and the guy is, I don't know how old he is, but he's 70s to 80s, right? In the business meeting, and he gave his presentation about, kind of his history, because he was being introduced to the group, right? We're like a networking group, whatever. He's being introduced to the group. And the level of different things that he did, right? He had this business, he worked with these people, he did this in this company, successful, video store and these different endeavors that kind of he had done along the way. And I'm just like, and this isn't like when he was, 18, a busboy or whatever we want to talk about, right? This is about like his professional careers. And then I look at myself and I'm like, I'm 44 now. I've been in the mortgage business since 2001. Now it's 2023. So I've been 22 years in the mortgage business. And I've worn different hats. I was in wholesale, which meant that mortgage brokers were our clients, right? And I worked a different aspect of it. Then I was in management in that area, and I managed people, but the same vertical. And then I was just a loan officer, and now I have a brokerage, and I'm a loan officer, and I do like both those pieces there. But it's been all the same thing. And part of times I'm just like, well, should I be looking at some other stuff that I'm not seeing or paying attention to? Or is it like, okay, that my head's down, I enjoy it, I feel fulfilled, I'm good at it, I keep building. Granted, here I am doing a podcast, so I guess that is a different, vertical or starting
marketing.
out, right?
It's marketing, though.
But it's it's just interesting to hear like the different levels of the, career, and then people's ability to stick to something and stick with it. So I don't know. Yeah, I mean,
I think. Pretty sure I'm ADD. Okay, so my son had some issues when he was younger, and we was having a hard time focusing. So we did, and I go through the same little line of questioning. I'm thinking to myself, wow, then I must be too. It's also a function of that's just if anyone goes and looks up
the WebMD situation. I have every illness of every symptom.
Yeah, you like everyone should consider themselves partially at least ADD. But the point I'm making is that honoring thyself is so important to make a decision about what direction to go. And when I decided to do this a shift of career, I knew that I had a hard time sticking to one thing. That's why I didn't like engineering. You had to really dive deep and then explore all the different avenues. Real estate allowed me to go in many different directions while still being in the vein of real estate, acquiring properties, doing property management. I mean, I have a portfolio now, right? So I've been in it a little less time than you in the mortgage business, but I started farming right away. That was a huge decision that was easy for me to make because I thought, wait a minute, I get along with people very easily. I like being neighborly. Before I was a real estate agent, being helpful to neighbors, befriending them. And so there are some things I think as an individual person, it's almost like incumbent upon us as experienced people in our industry where we are in charge of employing people. As a loan officer, you're employing appraisers, you're employing loan processors, you're employing other people that I'm
directly or indirectly. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. And as a real estate agent, same thing. I'm right now in a situation where I'm trying to hire somebody, and I'm not. I have found what you said to be true. What I'm finding is, and this is an important topic for people like your kids are younger, but mine, I purposefully stayed in this kind of mode of when I go to the gym, I always go to the sauna because it helps my sleep, but I found this, like, always keep your eyes and ears open for opportunity. I'm in there and I'm meeting all these guys that are, mostly younger than me. And we get into these conversations. I typically take a book in there, and I found taking a book in there always inspires conversation because they want to know what I'm reading. Some of them don't know what a book is. So I'm kidding. But, the conversations are about career. And I'll tell you what, 20, maybe a third of them that I've talked to have a real estate license, but they don't know how they're going to use it. They don't have a plan on how they're going to use it. They just believe they will use it. And so when I engage with them, I think it takes a lot longer, to cut to the chase, to help others just determine what they should be doing, where they should, really stick their effort into. They're scared to. I mean, I'll say it plainly. I think they're afraid that they'll make the wrong decision.
So they don't make any decision.
That's right.
Yeah. I wonder how many people got the real estate license during the 2020. I'm at home. I'm in COVID. I'm going to get it. And how many of them also got it under the expectation that they're going to buy their own properties and fix and flip and all that type of stuff versus making it into a career.
Oh yeah, and I've talked to some people about that, and they have a lot of connections. They know how to make connections, but the kind of connections you need to flip a home, that's different. I shouldn't. Some of them will probably become much more successful than me in terms of money. But the definition of success, if you don't mind, let's dive into that a little bit.
Please go for it.
Yeah, because that really, when you brought that up as we were preparing for this a couple days ago, just briefly mentioned it, it stuck with me. And what I was thinking about is how, for me, when I was younger, in particular, all the way until I became financially more successful, meaning that most of my business was coming to me from referrals and my farming, rather than open houses and people that I didn't know at all. At that point, I was in a state of kind of a fear operation. I don't mean that in a bad way. Fear is actually good. It's part of how we operate. It drives us a lot of times. But when you become a little bit more successful financially, then you can focus on other things, right? But I've always maintained a few things. My wife and I have been, first marriage, we'll always be married. We're not a perfect marriage. Nobody is. But we have the same values. We value, we're frugal, but we are taking a great vacation. I'm buying my first new car, by the way. I put in my order for my Model Y, So, but we made sure that we were accumulating wealth first. We bought stocks. We were, we always bought things on sale. So in terms of, we're careful with money, but our family was very important. The reason why we got married had a lot to do with the way we saw each other's families. My mother-in-law lives right behind us. My parents live one street over. We're very traditional in that sense. Taking care of family is critical. And we love doing it. I do all the cooking in the house. I cook for my mother-in-law sometimes. Sometimes I cook for my parents, but mostly my mom cooks for us. So we're very, I don't know, it's a very traditional way of living. From a spiritual standpoint, that's something else. We honor each other's spirituality. I was raised Catholic. I wouldn't call myself a Catholic today, but I do have a higher power. I do believe in God. My wife she's a little different. She's more agnostic. She has, she comes from a Chinese background, American-born Chinese, very Americanized. So, all these factors that success is, and those things add to my mental well-being and my health, my physical health. The way we eat, the way we look at family, like the love, compassion, these things. That's what success is more about. How do you treat others? Today I had Robin's Nest, which is a local charity that I'm a member of. Recently, picked up a lot of food and gift cards from the neighbors because I sent out a newsletter asking for these things for the kids that are going to be on spring break here that won't have food. So because they're not in school and the school gives them their food. So these are things that make me feel good, that bring me comfort, that I'm doing my part in community. So being a part of community is a factor in success. I think Zig Ziglar, is one of my favorites, and one of his quotes is, do the most you can with what you have, and you will be successful. It's an attitude. So, I don't know.
And I
John,
think I think success and happiness intertwine in a lot of ways from the same concept, and that's the definition is one of how we make it and how we want to incorporate that into our lives. So here's just from that same kind of vein, right? Let's talk about that. So there's a saying that comparison is the thief of joy. And I wholeheartedly believe in that because I have a hard time. I'm always comparing. And I don't try to do it from an envious perspective or like from that perspective, but from the perspective of like, okay, they have these things. Like if I had that thing, I could do this with this, right? Or whatever it might be, their life or their stuff or whatever it might be. And maybe there is a little like lustfulness in there in some regards, right? But I recognize it by some ways that I've had conversations with myself. And here's an example. I'm a car guy. I love cars. So, when I had, and I've been in the mortgage business since 2001, so I've had highs and lows, right? Financially, business-wise, all these different things, right? And I've learned from them, and that's why, we are where we are today. That being said, I'd be driving down the street, driving in my car, and, look at someone else's car sometimes and be like, man, like if I can only have that, like if I had that, or if I only had that, or I'm never going to be that, right? And then one day, I was looking at somebody's in the car, whatever, Ferrari, right? And I was like, I don't know their story. I'm having a hallucination. I'm giving my story. They love this car. Maybe they're driving to literally the repo place. Maybe they can't afford to make the payment. Maybe that they have no home. They don't own a home. They're renting. They're getting divorced. They're sick. I don't know their story. I'm looking at his car thinking like that's the cure-all be-all and that's the best thing for them, right? So you start to kind of recognize, and then there was other points where even in the last couple of years where, our business has received success financially, production, and then there's been different hurdles family-wise, health, or different stuff along those lines. You kind of take a step back and you reflect a little bit, and it's funny, I'm saying to myself, like, there's somebody wearing a backpack in the middle of nowhere that's camping out, looking at some waterfall, that is completely happy and fulfilled. And that's enough. And they have a higher level of happiness and fulfillment than maybe I have associating with these other things. So what is it all really worth, right? So it's that success definition, and that's the definition of happiness, I think, has to have a real lot of perspective.
Yeah.
So
yeah, no, our culture, it's what makes America great. I think is that level of is that we've been taught to be. Our Constitution talks about it, right? In life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, right? And I think that's a great thing. But yeah, we have to temper that, and I guess that comes with wisdom and age, But one of the things, John, like I've known you long enough to know that part of what you do comparison for is also an investigation and compare. So you don't only do that with respect to cars. You're a car guy, but I know we've had conversations. In fact, I'm just thinking about, as you were speaking, I was thinking about a conversation we had where it was related to a buyer who had, if I had pushed a little harder and you taught me to push myself a little harder to enforce, to get my potential buyers to talk to you, at least talk to you, because the fact of the matter was they didn't optimize their situation with the loan lender they went with, but I didn't pressure them to at least talk to you. So, that's kind of a mode of comparison. You're thinking to yourself, well, I could have done a better job than this other person. But you made sure to let me know, and then beyond that, you did me the service of teaching me what words to use to further ensure that the buyer would at least have a conversation with you. So that mindset of comparison, yes, it has a negative side to it, but always a positive side to it too, right? And that's the importance of anytime we see a negative in our own self, it's talking about it with someone else. That a spouse is helpful, but they're not necessarily a team member like you and I are in our business. So we need to do that on a regular basis. And you and I do that enough but I'm in like right now. Right now, I'm in a mode of one reason why I'm here for this podcast is because you're leading me by doing this, and I'm going to become a better marketer because of it. You mentioned a little while ago how you almost looked at what you've done with this beautiful display of marketing dollars you've spent as tangential to your business, but it's directly going to impact your business over time, right? It's like when you start anything new but you stick to it. That goes back to this is a great example of anyone who wants to start a new career. Well, talk to someone who's gone through that career path and then made those other steps to modify, to stay with the times in terms of how marketing is done in this business or whatever it is. Maybe it's, I think that the kids will be okay because my younger one came home from a junior college class and he was like, he just loves junior college. He's in his first year and he took a career class. And here's what the person said in one of the speakers. They have speakers that come every so often. They said, hey, all you out there, are you all worried about what your career will be? You're your first year of college here. You're probably most of you will transfer to another university, and everyone rose their hand. He said, everyone's like, yeah, I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't know what to study. And she said, well, it's a lot different now than when I was in college. She said, you're right now, there are going to be 85 new jobs for every job that exists today from where you sit. So in 4 years, there'll be 85 new occupations for every occupation that exists today. She says that is statistical truth. Has a lot to do with technology, and so I thought to myself, wow, that's kind of crazy. Well, I'm in the doctor's office the other day to volunteer. I had to get this TB test, and Ben, my nurse, is quite talkative, and if someone's talkative, I'm talking back. It was great. We're having a great conversation. I asked him, you're a nurse. Do you wish you would have been a doctor? He said, heck no. I said, yeah, I heard that. He said, no, he said, and I said, why not? Because there's so much less liability, not being a doctor. So I said, well, so then it's just PA, right? Or a nurse? Oh no. And I said, so there's a lot of options? Oh, there's so many. So he said, one of my favorites, he said, is you could be a nurse and be an expert witness and not even ever go into a hospital or doctor's office. So just a great example of how many options there are. Kids need to make a decision. They need to stick with it and then not take the linear path, not decide it's going to be a linear path, but just know that you're going to deviate from it and keep on deviating. And you might become, a video expert in the medical field, but start off as a nurse. Just roll with it.
No, for sure.
But work hard and stick with the people
I think
that
work hard is definitely a key piece to it, and that's something that I know that you do in your real estate career. So we're going to take a quick little break here and go to our sponsor. You're going to hear a quick word from our sponsor, J&J Coastal Lending, and then we'll be back to hear a little bit more about Fred and how he has built his real estate business. Today's episode is brought to us by J&J Coastal Lending. J&J is an independent mortgage broker with a network of over 70 different investors offering hundreds of loan programs. Whether your personal loan needs are simple or complicated, if you need a $200,000 loan or a $2 million loan, J&J will find the best loan program and rate. FHA, VA, conventional, jumbo, or a first-time homebuyer in need of down payment assistance. Regular income docs or outside the box, no documentation loan options. J&J has a solution to meet your unique needs. Visit www.thinkjnj.com for a no-cost, no-commitment evaluation. And when you're there, mention this podcast and J&J will give you $1,000 in lender credits on your next home loan. All right, so we're back here. John Soricelli with Mr. Fred Macias. Alfredo. I'm going to keep saying Alfredo. Alfredo. Do you like the white sauce, the Alfredo sauce?
Oh,
no?
fuck, oh yeah.
You go. He's like, fuck yeah. Hold on, I'm going to stop that. No, you don't have to censor.
When I was younger, I could just drink it. Cups at a time.
I'm like a pink. I'm a pink guy. I like to do a little bit of combination.
Yeah, tomato sauce.
A little bit of mix in there. But we had talked about a lot of things already so far, including, happiness, family, a little bit of the traditional life that you were kind of talking about that you live, and then, hard work and the importance of that. Yeah. So let's share with me a little bit about kind of your real estate career. And here's something that I want to say that I've noticed was different during one of our conversations. And that's the level of like personal attention, which fits our podcast theme here perfectly. But the level of personal attention that you want to provide your clients. And one time you had mentioned how you were limiting the amount of clients you would work with
right.
at one given time
Right.
to make sure that you provide a high level of service to those clients. So walk me through how you landed there. Like, tell me about that.
Yeah. That's how I landed there. I think, well, sometimes we don't have a choice, right? You know, I have dealt with 6 transactions. That's been my most at a given time. And 4 very personal attention, which, you know, that's the whole process. Like, so like, I'll give you an example. Okay. With buyers, as people as that are in the real estate business know, it's more difficult. I have a buyer survey that I created on my own. It's a 2-pager, and I make both, if it's a husband and wife or, you know, a father son buying together, I make them fill out these surveys separately, and
Independently,
independently. And so this way, you know, I review them. Then we do a summary. We have a consultation to discuss, okay, where are the differences and why. So trying to really limit how much time they waste on looking at property, because they really have never done this before. Maybe they did it once or twice before, and that's it. So that was something I did early on, and I got it from my consulting days. So early on, I did that, and I started thinking about that as a function of real estate in general. Everything I do should be process oriented, and so that's by determining processes for everything I do, I'm able to streamline whatever it is I do, and I can bring other people into the mix. So even that, I work with 4 clients at a time at most, whether it's listings or buyers. That's my desire. And my wife works with me. I brought her into the business probably about 4 or 5 years after I started. Once I started, you know, developing a repeat business and referral business. So she does all my contract work. She's my TC, but she's more than that. She has an engineering degree herself also. And I met her at in consulting. So when she became an at-home mom, that's when I brought her into the business. So together we are able to really ensure that things don't fall through the cracks. And it's why I get a lot of repeat business. What I haven't done is extend marketing as much as I'd like to, but it's been a blessing, because the time that I'm not operating with clients and not developing marketing material, I'm learning about real estate. I'm educating myself. So I have a bit of a lawyer's mind with real estate now. So I've done deals where I bought a property where, you know, we're the owner is still living in the property to this day, and but paying all the PITI, and we eventually will inherit the house, and we got it at a fair market price at the time, and it needs a lot of work. So the price was lower because of condition, but it's in a great area here in Huntington Beach, and I can't wait to do the work on it. So I maintain my friendships. I call them friendships, but they're business relationships. It's personal, like the name of this podcast. It is personal. People say things like, you know, oh, it's just business. Don't take it personal. Well, real estate business in particular is very personal. So I treat everybody as though I'm in their shoes. My painter, my electrician, my plumber. I mean, I go watch my plumber's band play. He plays in a local band here. You know, and I treat them like friends, like family, sometimes better than family, actually, because I'm around them more than some of my family. Right. So I can't do those kinds of relationship building if I am spending all my time doing transactions and if I'm doing, you know, 30, 40, 50, I don't understand how people do 100 transactions a year. I really don't, without a TC or, you know, yeah, I know one agent like that, but she is an animal. And so, you know what? We need people like her. That's not going to be me, and that's not my intention. So, yeah, did I answer the question, John?
You are, yeah. We're talking about a lot of different things here, and I think that you've done a good job answering the question for sure. So especially like you said, you want to limit the amount of clients that you're working with, and you came to that because you want to deliver that personal level of relationship that you don't get to deliver when you have more clients than you can have time to spend, learn, and develop, and that allows you to be able to provide a fantastic experience to them. So let's kind of try to end on a little bit of a note here about, share with me a little bit about a couple of the goals that you have for your business for, let's just say, the next 12 months.
Sure. Yeah. Definitely want to.
And give me the why. I'm sure you'll give me the why.
Oh, yeah.
But give me the why as well.
Right. So I definitely want to, go into a much more social media, video content. And the reason why is because history repeats itself. And so much of what I can do 10, 15-minute dissertations on concepts in real estate that go pretty deep, that are not related, that you don't hear on most podcasts. Most of the stuff is pretty generic or time sensitive, like what's going on with rates and why you should buy now. So I would love to go into that realm of, scenarios. Why? Because people will then see, they'll get how I operate, and I don't want to attract everybody into my business. I do want, and that's the reason why, is to create more business for people that are like me, that think like me, that operate like me, that, I'm doing a client appreciation party coming up soon, locally here in Huntington Beach. And I'm looking forward to doing that annually post-COVID here with people that I want to be around. I don't want to try to be all things to all people, or even to some people, just a few, know? So that's what it's about, is really, and I also, it's a legacy. I want to do more video content so that my kids, whenever they want, they can watch what I do. I can tell stories here, and, it's really about them, my family, my legacy, my grandkids. So that's more the reason why I want to do it. It's like a journal. Yeah.
Well, I appreciate having the opportunity to kind of start you down that path.
Yeah, you're the bomb. Thanks,
That's
man.
it, man. I appreciate you being here. So, once again, you just finished watching the I Take That Personal podcast. John Suricelli, Mr. Alfredo Macias. I don't think I'm ever going to not call you Alfredo now. And I appreciate you guys taking the time to be with us.